asserted that their government needs regime change. So, and we've asked Congress to appropriate $75 million to do it. So it's not surprising that we're moving to a point of confrontation and crisis with Iran.
Have another huge episode today. There's so much going on. Even just before this show happened, we got some more breaking news we're going to have to address. And really, I couldn't be happier to have Daniel McAdams, Executive Director of the Ron Paul Institute, co-host of the Ron Paul Liberty Report, to try to help me make sense of all of this, Dan, because there's just so much going on. It's unfolding so quickly. But first off, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Kyle. Thanks for having me on your program again. We appreciate it.
Yeah, always happy to have you, Dan. I'm glad that you're willing to join me so often. Now, I got a lot I want to talk to you about today. Thomas Massie's statement that this was a good week for the neocons in AIPAC, Israel's influence in Washington, lying us into another war, and is this the end of nonproliferation? But first, Dan, we have this breaking news. Iran said they responded by launching Trump claims 14. I'm getting different numbers on the number of missiles, but missiles at the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, where apparently Iran had given the U.S. quite a large notice that they were going to do this. Trump on Truth Social actually thanked Iran for giving them so much of a notice that they were able to evacuate all the troops, but he says we shot down all the missiles and this was a big nothing burger and now we could just de-escalate and end it. So, Dan, I guess what are your thoughts on this Iranian attack on the U.S. airbase in Qatar today?
Well, I think it was an important step in Iran giving Trump a off-ramp, which is what he needs. And I think they understood that. From my understanding of the attack, they used the same amount or the approximate amount of missiles that the U.S. used on its attack on those three nuclear sites in the U.S. used in this attack on those three nuclear sites in Iran. So it was clearly meant to signal, look, we're going to respond when you hit us, but we want to let you know that we could have done a lot more, but we're going to take it easy. And I think Trump did indicate that he appreciated that. Will he be smart enough to take this off-ramp? Well, normally, in normal circumstances with a normal president, I would say this is a golden opportunity. Take it. With Trump, you just never know from 1 second to the next, Kyle. And that's the real problem. This guy is schizophrenic or something's wrong with him. And so he just put out on X, congratulations, world, it's time for peace. Where does that come from? It's just, we can't believe him. He's destroyed his credibility. But if he's smart, he'll take this off-ramp.
Question there. This is something that I saw Trita Parsi, who I think is a real expert when it comes to Iran, pointed out on X, is this could go very much like the assassination on Qasem Soleimani in 2020, where you have the Americans do this very provocative act, kill a very important Iranian. He was, it turns out, very important to their influence in the region. The U.S. killed him, and in response, Iran bombed a U.S. airbase, but with enough notice that no Americans were killed. Some suffered injuries, but, generally speaking, it wasn't a major provocation. They didn't try to kill Americans. That wasn't the point of the attack. And Trump used that situation to de-escalate. Now, if Trump's driving the car, he's taking directions from Benjamin Netanyahu. And what Parsi points out is while we could have had escalation in 2020, now you're having continued Israeli attacks on Iran. Just before we went on, Dan, I saw Israel had issued evacuation orders for another region of Tehran, suggesting that there's more bombs going to fall on Iran tonight. And can we have de-escalation with Israel constantly escalating?
Well, I mean, some of the things that I've seen is that the plan apparently for Trump is to call for peace and to put pressure on Netanyahu to stop bombing Iran. Now, I'll believe it when I see it, because literally everything the administration does is a smokescreen, is a fake, is a dupe. The whole idea that, Bibi and Trump are having problems, they're not getting along well, that was totally fake. They had already planned the Israeli invasion of Iran. That was already pre-planned and discussed while he was leading the media, the willing media, to believe that they had a big falling out. So the problem is, I mean, you how many times, as remember what George W. Bush said, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, won't get fooled again. And that's basically where we are right now, but we are keep getting fooled again.
Trump administration, the president himself tried to pull or did pull a similar action where, according to the Jerusalem Post, he approved the Operation Midnight Hammer 4 days before that attack actually took place. And during that 4 day period, Netanyahu actually pressed him to expand the range of the attack. But Axios is reporting that even though Trump knew that he was going to carry out the attack, he was leaving it ambiguous in public, in part to deceive the anti-interventionist MAGA base who want him to do this, as well as Iran. And so every time Trump says something about peace at this point, Dan, I'm thinking this means more war.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's just urinated on his base, and he continues to do that. So, this is the U.S. unfortunately has a history of this kind of thing, and that's why it lacks credibility in the international sphere. We certainly did it around 2014 when the Russians had taken most of Donbass and they were about ready to go in to finish it off. That's when we did the Minsk talks, and that was a ruse, and we knew that it was a ruse. Certainly found out later when Merkel and others, said, yeah, of course, that was a ruse. It's happened over and over again. It's happened just in this particular conflict continuously. The whole, as you say, the whole idea that we're going to have talks with you. We're almost there. We're getting close, guys. We're getting close. By the way, you're ready to sign? Oh, well, we kind of changed the terms. You can't do any enrichment at all. But we'll meet again for the next round. And just before the next round, the Israelis pulled the trigger. We knew they were going to pull the trigger beforehand. There's just no way that you can trust the Americans anymore, and that's a terrible thing to say.
Definitely is. Now, Dan, when you say that Trump is urinating on his base, the main target of that right now is Representative Thomas Massie, who has been nothing short of heroic over the past few years, really since the maybe outbreak of the COVID pandemic. But particularly during the Trump presidency, this is a man who is willing to take on President Donald Trump, even though it keeps earning him the ire of the president. And I think it might have been these remarks of Massie that got him in so much hot water. So let's play this clip.
Well, I'll concede this. It was a good week for the neocons in the military-industrial complex who want war all the time. I wouldn't call my side of the MAGA base isolationists. We are exhausted. We are tired from all of these wars, and we're non-interventionists. I mean, this was one of the promises. I mean, are you going to call President Trump's campaign an isolationist campaign? What he promised us was we would put America first. And I think there are still voices in this administration. You've still got J.D. Vance. You've still got Tulsi Gabbard. You still, RFK Jr., you still got calmer heads that could prevail.
They were not persuasive in this case, clearly.
Well, somebody was persuasive. AIPAC is very persuasive. For instance, the Israeli lobby in Congress. If you look at my colleagues' feeds now, they all look the same. They're all tweeting the same message that we've got to support Israel and we've got to do this. My question is, does 3 bombings and we're done with Iran's nuclear ambitions? Is that the 2 weeks to slow the spread of 2025? Is this, we were told 2 weeks to slow the spread then. Now we're told it's just going to take 3 bombings. But what happens when Israel gets bombed again? Is Trump going to sit by and say, no, we're not going to further engage in this war?
So, Dan, as Massie said, do you see this as being a very good week for the neocons and AIPAC?
Yeah, it is, and they've come back with the vengeance. I mean, they're saying the same things they said in 2002 about Iraq, and they certainly have the upper hand right now. There's no question about it. But when you sort of take a deep breath, take in some oxygen, and take a look at what's happened, these strikes on the 3 facilities in Iran, it's now become increasingly clear that there may have even been an agreement beforehand. It's very dubious. People that I know and trust, like Will Scriber and others, have said there really is no way that these were the bunker buster bombs, the 57s that had landed there. There's just not enough damage done. They didn't take it out. There was not utter devastation, as President Trump has said. And he actually even, I think it's coming back to him because he's even sent out a message this afternoon how it's just the lying media that says it wasn't devastated. But they weren't devastated. They weren't taken offline. And to boot, the U.S. admitted they have no idea where the enriched uranium is now. So they've taken away every incentive for Iran to play by the rules, to not enrich to weapons level, to not create weapons. They've taken away every incentive, and they dropped the ball, and nobody knows where the uranium is. So they have created the worst possible scenario. If I didn't think they were so hapless, I would think maybe they did it on purpose. You know, as Lenin said, the worse the better. They don't want a peace in the region because it wouldn't allow them to continue the war machine. But I think it just may be ineptitude. It may be the inability. We have a Secretary of Defense who's clearly outside his level of competence. It'd be like putting me in there. I don't. I wouldn't know how to run the Pentagon. I'd just shut it down. You guys go home. Take it easy. But he's clearly not done the job. When I first heard it, Operation Midnight Hammer, I thought maybe the SecDef had got hammered at midnight or something. I don't know. But but yeah, I mean, not only have they not achieved any objectives, unless the objective was. Now, here's the other thing, Kyle. If the objective was boom, 3 and go, do a victory lap, go home. That's what it seemed like the messaging was, because that was a message the administration said. That's what that's what the Secretary of State said. That's what everyone around Trump said. We're not going to continue going. This is not about regime change. They literally, one by one, lined up and said, this is not about regime change. Then literally a few minutes later, Trump got on his Truth Social and said, this is about regime change. You know, why not? It's a good idea. So it's what a madhouse.
Yeah. And so, Dan, I just want to ask you about Israel's influence in Washington, and in particular, how the new Trump administration, there seems to be so many people who actually prefer Israel to the United States, including the State Department spokeswoman. Let's hear what she has to say.
The pride of being able to be here and do work that facilitates making things better for people, and in the greatest country on earth, next to Israel. In the greatest country on earth, next to Israel. It's an honor to be able to make a difference and to be able to speak in this regard with an administration that I love so much.
Yeah, I mean, do people like this? And maybe she misspoke. Maybe it was a Freudian slip. I don't know. She has a history of being extremely obsessed with that country. But my question is, do these people really think that they're helping Israel by acting this way, by overtly saying, yeah, we're going to do the bidding of Israel. We're going to do the bidding of a foreign country. Americans, if you look at, and I know you've looked at the polls, Kyle, if you look at every single poll, particularly among younger Americans, say 18 to 35-year-olds, their view of Israel is increasingly negative, and that includes Republicans and conservatives. So if they think that this is a way to get Americans behind Israel by constantly, I mean, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene said last week that they've done that. Don't hold me to this, but they've passed some 24 or 25 resolutions in support of Israel in the U.S. House this term alone. Yet they can't pass a single appropriations bill. There's no time for it. And before the war broke out, our illustrious Speaker of the House announced that he was going to go conduct meetings in the Knesset, in the Israeli parliament. And Massie said, yep. And when September 30th rolls around, he's going to say, well, we just didn't have time to do the appropriations bills. So if they think they're helping Israel, they're not, because Americans are absolutely average Americans. People, there have always been some people that are obsessed with Israel, and the extremist type. They just hate, the country, or they just hate Jewish people, and you're never going to get away from that. That's just how it is with every place. But now there are people that are just mainstream normal people who didn't really have particular hatred for the country, but they're sick of it because of people like her and so many others that are putting a foreign country first. It's just natural. Any country would feel that way.
Entire interview, Dan, is really wild. The Israeli host is actually being somewhat insulting to her, like saying she's not qualified for the job that she has. And she's just going on about how the world needs to be grateful for all the things the Jewish people have done for them. And the problem is there's just some people who are envious and jealous of the Jews. She's talking about the Muslims, of course. And it's a really wild interview to see. And the State Department spokeswoman, okay, she doesn't have a lot of influence. She's not making policy. But it does seem like Tel Aviv has a lot of influence on Washington's policy. These are just a few articles I wrote over the past week. Israel attacked Iran to prevent Trump from making a nuclear deal with Tehran. Dan, this was a report from the Jerusalem Post in conversations with top Israeli officials. This next one, report Netanyahu convinced Trump to expand Iranian attack beyond Fordo. Again, this is reported from the Jerusalem Post. And this last one, CIA chief echoes Mossad findings on Iran nuclear program. And there's been reporting from Sagar Enjeti, Matt Blumenthal, and others who have really detailed how this intelligence assessment from Mossad that Israel was 15 days away from making a nuclear bomb overrode the intelligence assessment from Tulsi Gabbard and the rest of the intelligence community. So, Dan, with all of that, how much influence does Tel Aviv now have in the White House?
It's unprecedented. It's never before. It's been subtle and more subtle in the past, but this is completely out in the open, and they're not afraid of it. And it's not a good look, and it's a dangerous look for them, as you point out, or as Tammy Bruce pointed out. Yes, Jews have done some great things, but people in the secular Israeli government that have killed 50 or 60,000 innocent civilians are not doing great things right now. So they have to make this. You have to make this distinction between plenty of American Jewish people are absolutely opposed to what's being done. There's even not in our name. They even have an organization that says that. So they're conflating the two is absolute. In fact, I think it is anti-Semitic to conflate the two, in a way. But it's absolutely overt now, and I don't know how long it'll last. The thing that's troublesome though is you're seeing the more you see normal people who aren't crazed speak out about, hey, I don't like this that much. This doesn't seem to make sense. The more you see that, the more crackdowns you're seeing on speech, and you combine that with technology that's able to crack down with AI and things of that nature. And you're seeing this sort of panopticon forming for anyone with views that are outside. Now, they started with foreigners, and even though they got smacked down with a couple, thankfully, just recently, they ruled this fellow had to be released. But this is a trial balloon. It's a trial balloon, and they're going to keep at it, and they're going to start going just like the Patriot Act. We're only going to go after terrorists. Oh, hey, Snowden, we found out that they were going after everyone. They were listening in on everyone. It's the same thing is going to happen. So the more they provoke people to be irritated by something that isn't normal, it's not normal to tie your entire foreign policy, your domestic policy even, to the mast of another country. Nobody would put up with that. So the more people are realizing this isn't normal, the more the regime is going to be able to crack down on them, ruin their lives. We even see some of the influencers. Laura Loomer, I forget who it was, that said something critical, and she doxed him, to his employer, trying to get him fired. Oh, it was Rechtenwald. She tried to dox him because he said something critical of Israel a few days ago. So you're going to see more and more of that. It's going to get a lot uglier, I think.
Very concerned about that. Now, Dan, I want to ask you about them lying the United States people into another war, or maybe attempting to, and this clip of Marco Rubio breaking down why we attacked Iran.
Weaponization ambitions. Are you saying there that the United States did not see intelligence that the Supreme Leader had ordered weaponization?
That's irrelevant. I think that question being asked in the media, that's an irrelevant question.
No,
they have
that is
everything
the
they need
key
to build
point
a
in
weapon.
U.S. intelligence assessments. You know
No,
that.
it's not.
Yes, it was.
No, it's
that
not.
The political decision had not
I know
been
that better
made.
than you know that, and I know that that's not the case.
But I'm asking you whether the order was given.
And the people who say that, it doesn't matter if the order was given. They have everything they need to build nuclear weapons. Why would you bury things in a mountain, 300 feet under the ground?
Right.
Why would you bury why do they have 60% enriched uranium? You don't need 60% enriched uranium. The only countries in the world that have uranium at 60% are countries that have nuclear weapons. because
Right.
they can quickly make it 90. They have all the elements. They have. Why do they have a space program? Is Iran going to go to the moon? No, they're trying to build an ICBM.
No, but
so
that's
they
a
can one day
question.
put a
That's a
warhead on
question.
it.
That's a question of intent, and you know, in the intelligence assessment, that it was that Iran wanted to be a threshold
How do
state
you know
and
what the
use this
intelligence
leverage.
assessment says?
I'm
How do
talking
you
about
know what
the
the
public
intelligence assessment
March
says?
assessment, and that's why I was asking you if you know something more from
but
March.
that's also
if
an
an order
inaccurate
was
representation of it. That's an accurate representation of it. That's not how intelligence is read. That's not how intelligence is used. Here's what the whole world knows. Now, forget about intelligence.
Yeah, we've forgotten about intelligence after watching that. We've
Yeah.
forgotten a lot about intelligence. He sounded like a kid at first, didn't he? No, it's not. That is you, but what am I? I
Well,
mean,
and
talk
then
about
his
belligerent.
remark there about Iran building. Why would they have a space program if they're not planning to launch an ICBM? Like he's never heard of a satellite before, or something
Well,
like
what the
that.
hell business is it of his if they have a space program? It's just who the hell is he to tell a foreign country you can't do this, you can't do that? Oh well, it does. It's irrelevant whether they had decided to make weapons. It's none of your damn business. They're signatories of the IAEA. They have absolutely every to enrich uranium for peaceful purposes, and they have the U.S. The burden of proof is on the U.S. and they don't have the proof. They never had the proof. They had a big pack of lies cooked up by the Mossad, and they ran with it, and that's why he's so defensive. Because that's one of the first times I've seen that. What's her name, Margaret, the woman? That's one of the first time I've seen her actually acting like a journalist. I'm, I'm almost grateful that these creeps are doing this because these guys are waking up and reawakening their journalistic skills, and she did a pretty good job there. I'm surprised to see that. But he was very unimpressive, wasn't he? What do you know about intelligence? I know everything about it, and he's,
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to ask you, Ned, Stan, because I believe you were in Ron Paul's congressional office during the run up to the Iraq War, and people are comparing the run up to the Iraq War to the run up here, but maybe it's just a intelligence gap between people like Pete Hegseth versus Donald Rumsfeld, and just the comparative intelligence. Even if there's an evil, Dick Cheney was an evil man, but maybe he was a savvier political navigator. But it seems like rather than actually trying to ally the American people into war this time around, they're just prepared to shove it down our throats, and they think we're going to accept it.
that's a great assessment, Kyle. And I've heard that someone else said that to me today in another interview, and I think it's absolutely astute. That's what they're doing. They're not trying to convince. They're not trying. And there's, by the way, there's a great article. We did an excerpt on the Ron Paul Institute website by Bruno, excuse me, Macias. I think I'm mispronouncing his last name. He's Portuguese, but the article is something about the dangerous new neoconservatism. And he makes such a great point that the original neoconservatives who lied us into the Iraq War, they lied us in with promises, pardon me, of democracy building. We're going to make a better world. We're going to make a new world. Whereas the current crop of warmongering neoconservatives, what he's observed, and I think he's right, is that they don't even put that window dressing on. They want to create chaos. He called it nihilism. They're completely nihilistic. They want to create chaos. They actually want to create failed states. They are not giving you a shit sandwich and telling you it's a wonderful, roast beef. I'm not allowed to say that word, but they don't care about it. They're just handing you the shit sandwich. Here, eat it. Yeah, but it's a shit sandwich. I don't care.
Yeah.
Eat it. And that's what they're doing. And it's pretty amazing. And if the American people stand for it, man, we got some big problems.
Yeah, I think we do. Now, Dan, before we wrap up here, I wanted to show you, well, of course, you are aware of this post you had on X that I thought was fantastic in the immediate aftermath of the Israeli attack on Iran. It's a picture of Kim Jong-un with some binoculars, and it says, "You should have gotten nukes, you idiots." And I thought this was I could come on here with an article and explain why this is a blow to nuclear proliferation, but I think that meme sums it up better and just so quickly. So, Dan, how big of a blow is this to trying to prevent nuclear proliferation?
If you do not want to be destroyed by the U.S., if you are any sort of threat, even perceived threat whatsoever, the message is get nuclear weapons. Kim Jong Un, for how many years was he derided as a madman? And he may be a madman, but he's a madman whose country is not going to get regime change by the United States. And that's the lesson of Gaddafi. That's the lesson of Saddam Hussein. That's the lesson of Assad. If you try to make a deal with these people, they will stab you in the back. In the case of Gaddafi, they stabbed him somewhere else. Um, but that's the message. Get the bomb if you want the U.S. off your back. And it seems to me, maybe I'm just a rational person, that's the opposite message you want to send.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Dan. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Everybody, that's Dan McAdams, the executive director of the Ron Paul Institute and the co-host of the great Ron Paul Liberty Report. Essential listening if you want to keep up on all the happenings around the world and the violations of our liberty here at home. Dan, thank you so much, and we'll do it again soon.
Thanks, Kyle. Sounds great.